right, welcome back, everybody. Seven Figures or Bust podcast, number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton, and
your face is frozen, sir. I could hear you, but then your face froze on me.
Oh, no.
Oh, you're back.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, everybody. Episode 119, Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton, and
hey,
we don't have internet in Utah. It's not a thing. So if you're coming to the summit and you use any form of internet, surprise. Oh my goodness gracious, we have a doozy of an episode today, breaking down this crazy story about a healthcare CEO being indicted. We're gonna get into that, kind of go through that story a little bit. Before we get into that, I'm not sure if you have some things you want to kind of toss around a little bit. I will start off by saying, though, that hopefully for any agents that might be watching us or any agents, that we know in the LA area, I hope you're safe. Hope you're not caught up in the violence that is transpiring. The chaos. I'm not going to go into it on the show today. Much more than that, I ruffled some feathers last night, so I decided I'm going to take a step back from ruffling feathers.
You ruffling feathers? Never. Never. That never happens.
I am a lovable, likable, huggable boy.
Okay, Paddington. Paddington the bear. I did have a question for you today, and you have to swear to answer honestly on your unborn son in front of the whole audience once I ask this question. Do you solemnly swear?
I'm going to regret this, but yes.
Okay, guys, yes. Swear it in front of all of us. How often are you using your standing desk in a standing position?
Very rarely. It might be once a week. There might be even some weeks that go by where I don't use it even one time. And I'm not working in the office all the time. It's, last week I did 4 days. Last couple weeks I did 4 days, but usually it's 3 days. And I don't have a standing desk.
Oh, I just lost you on audio.
Being able to use it.
Oh
no. I can hear you.
It's lagging. I can hear you now, but it's lagging. Unplug your mic. It's so weird. It was working perfectly before we started.
Okay, how about now? Testing.
Much better. So you're not always working at your standing desk, is what you were saying.
Yes. So it's not like 5 days a week. I mean, really, I usually do work 6 days a week because I do some stuff on Saturdays. That's usually when I film content. I'd say 3 days a week out of the 6 that I might be doing something, I'm not at the standing desk at all. So it's really only usually on a normal week, 3 days a week that I might have potential exposure to said standing desk.
Potential. It's what a wild way of getting out of this question. The politician here. I'm not always at that desk, so this question doesn't count. The reason I bring this up is I've had
everything's under control in California. Sorry, I said I wouldn't go into it.
Gosh.
I said I wouldn't go into it. I'm done. No more references.
The reason I bring this up, so I've had, and I think I convinced you to buy the same desk I have, the same standing desk.
It's possible.
Is it the Up Desk?
Yeah,
Up Desk, I believe is the company I got this from. Not a sponsor, but we are discussing this company, Up Desk. It's a really nice desk. I've enjoyed it. I got it probably 3-4 years ago.
Yeah,
and early on, I really didn't use the actual standing feature a whole lot. I was sitting at it a lot. And I always felt almost a little guilty about it. I will say in the past 6 months, I've been actively trying to stand more. And I know
Mhm.
we were talking about yesterday, like getting old, and this sounds like a major old man thing, but if I sit, if I'm sitting and working, or we're doing meeting, like whatever it is, if I sit at this desk for like 2 hours or more, I feel like it like ruins my day. Like I feel like if I
Ooh.
stand though, if I stand for even like 30 minutes of 2 hours, it completely changes like how I'm feeling, if like my back gets tight. So I don't know. I'm a huge believer now. So, it took me like 3 years of having this desk till I'm actually using it. But I was curious because we've only talked about that maybe one other time, I feel like.
Part of the thing too, I think with me, especially when I'm here, is I'm not like sitting at it for hours at a time, because I
Right.
usually will be getting up and walking into another room to talk to one of our team members about something, or maybe I'll go into
Right.
another room for a meeting, or like I'm not stationary, I guess, all day. I'm,
Yeah.
you know, out, I'm up and I'm out and I'm moving around in the office a lot. Like when I talk on the phone, I'm a habitual pacer, not the Indiana
Yeah.
Pacers, but I'm a pacer. And so I usually don't like sitting down while I'm talking on the phone. I'll have a headset on and I'll just be kind of walking around my office like in circles, like a crazy person. Um, and so I'm not sitting probably as much as one might think, just because I can't sit still oftentimes. But
Yeah.
I could use it more. I could make use of the standing desk feature more. I would say in the last 3 months, every time I've used it, you witnessed it. I was doing a training with you. We were on a company meeting, something like that.
I was a witness to the standing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were like
I
Cleveland in 2008.
well, oh my God. Well, that's the key point though, is it's not necessarily about standing or using a standing desk. I think the key is to continually move though. I
Mhm.
think that's the important thing. I just can't imagine. I know there's people out there. They either have a cubicle or they have the desk, whatever. They're working from home. You're working in the office, whatever, and you sit for 6 out of 8 hours a day. Like I could never do it. I could never do it. Just sounds horrible. And I was gonna say too, did you see my post yesterday about the seven-figure shirt?
I
That's a
did.
true story. That was a true story, guys. That wasn't
I
made up.
found I think first off, I want to say that's awesome. Look at you talking where your feet are. Um, where is our new client? That's my question. Where is this person?
Here,
Um,
local to me.
let's get them scheduled. Let's get them on the calendar. Um,
Well, the funny part is they mentioned open enrollment. They're like, yeah, this annual
oh,
a like they're talking about AEP. It sounded like they were on a United Healthcare plan, which I'm wondering if they drive in, because again, where I don't think there's any network out where I am.
mm.
So maybe I wonder if they have to drive in to Portland to use it. I don't know. A lot of people do
um,
that out here.
it's interesting, right? Because like the 7-figure Medicare gear, I've never looked at it as like something that will draw in clients. I've always looked at it like someone would
Right.
see it and be outraged by it. Like that's where our tax dollars are going, like
Yeah.
not understanding what the brand is about, you know.
That's
So
that's why it was funny to me, because the first
so
thing, as
yeah.
soon as they asked me about it, I like heard you, I like froze for a second because I was hearing like your thoughts in my head, like, oh no, they're gonna catch us. They're gonna know we're making money doing this.
Yeah, I'm a paranoia about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, like I remember I was on a trip a couple years ago and I was wearing a hat. I think back then it was a 6-figure Medicare hat. It was late at night and I was going in the elevator, going to my room in the hotel I was staying at, and I was tired. And there was a senior in the elevator with me. And he was kind of grilling me about the hat. He's like, I'm on Medicare. He's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? 6-figure Medicare. What does that mean? Like he's like grilling me, and I'm like, I was not in any mood. and it was late. It was like 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night. And I was like, it's a group I'm a part of, dude. I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, you know,
that line, and I use that line, it's a group I'm a part of. That seemed to be a very acceptable answer. And then it immediately transitioned into, I've been meaning to ask you about my Medicare. I'd love to talk to you about my Medicare. I want to see what my options are in open enrollment. I mean, so I was like, man, it can be so easy sometimes to have these conversations.
So can, like, you just talk where your feet are. One thing that I'm always been a big believer about, and I've talked about it. It could be anything from being in the steam room with a towel on or no towel on, depending on your personal preference.
Good Lord.
Lots of seniors hanging out in the steam room. I see them every morning. Lately, I have not been good about talking where my feet are. I've been kind of closing the world out with my waterproof earbuds, listening to things. But no, there's been situations where, like, I'll be in the steam room and I'll talk to somebody. And one thing I've always done well at, whether I'm like on a plane or no matter where I am, is finding ways to bring up what I do casually to where it doesn't seem like I'm cramming it down their throat. I just casually bring it up in conversation. I work with people on Medicare, on their Medicare health plans, so that's what we do. So, in our business, just like I'll weave it into the conversation. And it's amazing how often people will be like, even if they're younger, I have a relative that needs help with that. I know this person needs help with that. Help with that. Help with that. And I think that's a real thing. Talking where your feet are,
100%,
and finding ways to bring that up in conversation. I've told the story many times. I have lots of carrier gear. For a long time, I wore nothing but that because I was such a big believer in this. Like, I would wear it everywhere. I'd go to the store, everything like that. And my first child was a baby. We were taking her for a walk in the stroller in my neighborhood, and I was wearing a United Healthcare t-shirt. And on one walk, I think I had two different seniors, like, out working in their yard, ask me about it. One of them turned into, it was like a month away from AEP. One of those conversations turned into a husband and wife changing their plan to us. And I think we still have them on the books, I want to say. So this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. But
there you go.
Like, it's so simple. Everybody needs help with this stuff. Everybody.
Yeah. I think that's when moments like that happen, I just think about how complex and how there's so much overthinking that happens with agents. And I've been, you can accuse me of this at times too, where it's just like, you think like, how do I do this? How can I see enough people? How can I have enough conversations, to be able to submit enough applications? And you get so caught up in all of it that, like, the actual, just the simplicity of having the conversation, you get lost in doing that. And then all of a sudden you can be anywhere and, oh, this is coming up. Yeah, I can absolutely help you. Let's talk. I mean, it can be really simple.
Yeah, it definitely can.
There's a comment here on the stream. Guys, Freebie Friday happens every single Friday right here in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. All you have to do is drop one comment on at least one stream during the week. We typically do 4 streams a week, and you automatically get entered into our giveaway. We've given away more than $100,000, or just about $100,000 worth of leads, services, education, summit tickets, etc. And we're going to do it again this week. So appreciate all your comments. Comment on the stream here. I wore my t-shirt and a lady said, that's why our Medicare is expensive while you guys make a lot of money.
Yep. Like, in the scheme of things, per policy, we make so little.
Right.
Right. It comes from, like, helping a lot of volume of people. But yeah, that I I don't know. I've always had anxiety of that immediate thought, but it is what it is. I feel like if you're wearing like ask me about Medicare t-shirts or hoodies or things like that, I've had people approach me in the store. I've had this ask me about Medicare hoodie that I used to wear a lot. Is big letters, red, white, and blue letters, like you couldn't miss it. And I had several people approach me in like grocery stores and stuff over the years.
I'm trying to think if I've seen a picture of this hoodie.
I believe I recorded a selfie style video for a Facebook ad back in the day and ran it wearing that in the office.
I think I've seen it.
And it was a banger. We're getting like $5 a lead. It was great. Back in the day, but
back in the day.
but yeah, like that kind of stuff. I don't know, it's almost like you're putting a advertisement out to the world, like, hey, this is what I do. I don't know if in general, more often than not, that'll work for the 7-figure Medicare gear. But who knows? Maybe, I don't know. I guess it depends on the person, and their ability to, not read too much into the messaging.
Yeah. I think keeping it casual, right? Instead of trying to say something like, this is about me becoming a millionaire selling Medicare insurance. Hey, what's your shirt about? I'm going to be a millionaire selling Medicare to you.
Well, you see, I am on a quest to become a millionaire selling Medicare, and you are just the latest of the conquest. Can you imagine things not to say in those interactions?
I'm on a quest.
And people just like you
Frodo.
will be the one to help me to get there. Will you be my Samwise? Will you be my Samwise, or will you just be Boromir?
That's how you really lose them. Lord of the Rings. Oh, that's
Boromir. I saw a meme the other day and it was so great. I was gonna tag you, but I didn't know if you'd find it as funny as me. It was like a picture of Faramir, whatever his brother's name is, the one that's like never good enough for the dad.
Yeah.
Boromir wouldn't have done that. And so it's like a picture of him in the movie, like 2000, it said 2003, and then it showed a picture of the actor now. It's like 2024, 2025. And it's like, and then it showed the dad. It was like Boromir would have won an Oscar by now or something like that. That's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness gracious. Shall we pivot into sponsorship this episode?
Yes, we shall.
Do you want to tell us who the sponsor of episode 119 is, Mr. Glenn Shelton?
Yes. Guys, the sponsor of today's episode 119 of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast, is brought to you by the 7-Figure CRM. If you are looking for a CRM solution, something to help you manage either your existing clients or help nurture new leads coming in, we have a solution for you that I believe is one of the best CRMs on the market. It has automations built into it that will allow you to nurture leads from start to finish, as well as things that are super helpful, like a pre-built SOA template that you can send out, a pre-built PTC template that you can send out to prospects and anyone that you're talking to, just like I mentioned earlier in the episode. It's a very simple thing that could be done. Enter in their phone number, they get a link texted to them, and they can sign right there. If you don't have a CRM or you're looking for a new CRM, don't wait. You can sign up for a free 14-day trial today. That's right. 14 days, 100% free. Try it out. We're even offering free data migration right now as well, which will not always be a thing. So Check it out, sevenfigurecrm.com, sevenfigure.crm.com. Boom.
A boom. A boom.
Boom.
All right. Let's pivot into this conversation, right?
Yes.
I feel like we can take a lot of time talking about this. So the title of this episode 119, is Should CMS be more concerned or more worried about providers than Medicare agents? And I think there's a real argument to be had that the answer to that is yes. And I've seen a lot of things over the years, right? I've been in the Medicare space 11 years, year 11. Actually, I want to say, I couldn't tell you the exact day, but sometime in June, I'm just going to count it because we're in June, would be my 11-year anniversary date.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. So the anniversary of my first love, my career.
Your only love.
My only love. So glad my wife doesn't watch this show. But anyway, I've seen all kinds of situations with Medicare fraud, and so many times, especially in like really large amounts of money too, it's providers, like billing Medicare for just these like fraudulent BS charges and everything like that, like schemes,
yes.
all these different things. Not saying it's all providers, obviously not. It'd be like saying all Medicare agents are bad or anything like that.
Right.
But it seems to me, especially when you're dealing with original Medicare, right? Like an argument to be had for Medicare Advantage, if you wanted to go pro Medicare Advantage and anti-original Medicare. I'm not saying this is the case, but like if someone wanted to have that conversation, the person that would be pro Medicare Advantage would be Medicare Advantage is good because they analyze claims more carefully, because they don't just let anything slip through. Like, do you ever hear about people billing a carrier like that and fraud and, getting fraudulent funds out of a carrier? I can't think of too many instances of that. I always hear about it with original Medicare because original Medicare approves everything because they don't have the staffing to look at things over. They don't have the infrastructure. They're just like, the doctor said it, approved,
I mean, it happened. I think it happens in the under 65 market a lot too, though. I think there's a lot of fraud that's happening. I just saw this whole thing about med spas that are operating under doctor supervision, where the doctor is not even actually at the clinic. They basically, you can call the doctor, right? Like, doctor never goes into the clinic. And you have someone who is, a nurse at best performing surgeries, and then they'll turn around and they'll bill insurance company like all sorts of crazy stuff.
Sure.
And I think I talked about the cancer kit thing, I think on a previous episode.
Yes.
And the teledoctor, the telemedicine that was behind that, there was all sorts of sketchiness going on. But again, I think it's important to note, like, this isn't all we're not saying, all providers, all doctors are bad, but there is a lot of questionable activities that are going on. Here's the one thing I just want to say is that there's something about, there's like this altruism around doctors, where it's like, they went to school, they got their degree, surely they're a good person, I guess. They took the Hippocratic oath, Isn't there something about that though, right? Don't you almost think that a little?
I mean, I'm sure there is. I'm sure
there's something about that. It's like, this is a doctor, it's a good person.
I definitely think anytime you have billing and claims involved, there's always a potential for sketchiness, right? Because whoever's being billed, whether it be Medicare or carriers, they're taking the word of the doctor. They're not sitting there in the office with the patient and with the doctor observing to make sure there's no funny business going on. They're kind of just at the mercy of whatever that claim provides in terms of detail. All I was really saying on the carrier side is I think carriers have a tendency to look these things over closer, and it's less likely that there's any malarkey that's going to slip through. But not to say it doesn't happen. It certainly does.
Right. True.
But, that's neither here or there, I think. But let's kind of jump into this article. So I looked at a couple of different places that this is being talked about. Really, the best information I found on it was on the Department of Justice's website.
DOJ, baby.
So I'm going to share my screen, and we can react to this story together. Okay. So it's titled CEO of Healthcare Software Company. So it's a software company convicted of $1 billion of fraud conspiracy. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Note, this release has been updated to include a quote from the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. A federal jury convicted the CEO of Power Mobility Dr. RX LLC, DMERX, for his role in operating a platform that generated false doctor orders to defraud Medicare and other federal healthcare benefit programs of more than $1 billion. Oh, my yikes.
Why you liar?
That's a big number.
That's a lot of fraud. That's a lot of fraud, baby. More than a billion.
According to court documents and evidence presented at trial, Gary Cox, 79, of Maricopa County, Arizona, and his co-conspirators targeted hundreds of thousands of Medicare beneficiaries who provided their personally identifiable information and agreed to accept medically unnecessary orthopedic braces, pain creams, and other items through misleading mailers, television advertisements, and calls from offshore call centers.
Oof.
Cox and his conspirators owned, controlled, and operated DMERX, an internet-based platform that generated false and fraudulent doctor's orders for these items. As part of the scheme, Cox connected pharmacies, durable medical equipment suppliers, and marketers with telemedicine companies that would accept illegal kickbacks and bribes in exchange for signed doctor's orders transmitted using the DMERX platform. Wow.
There it is. Yeah.
Cox and his co-conspirators received payments for coordinating these illegal kickback transactions and referring the completed doctor's orders to the durable medical equipment suppliers, pharmacies, and telemarketers that paid kickbacks and bribes for the orders. So, wow, it's a pretty damning
claims. Complex. Yeah, pretty complex little organization of crime going on here.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to skip down a little. Well, I guess I'll read this next part as well a little bit. The fraudulent doctor's orders generated by DMERX falsely represented that a doctor had examined and treated the Medicare beneficiaries when, in fact, purported telemedicine companies paid doctors to sign the orders without regard to medical necessity based only on a brief telephone call with the beneficiary or no interaction with the beneficiary at all. So that's what you were just saying, right?
Yes, literally, yes. Yeah.
So for those of you that aren't following along for whatever reason, they're saying that the doctors either would have a phone call with the beneficiary or never even have any contact with them and submit a claim saying they examined them.
Yes. I believe this is happening every day.
I do too. I do too.
For sure.
The DME suppliers and pharmacies that paid illegal kickbacks in exchange for these doctors' orders billed Medicare and other insurers, so private insurance companies involved, more than $1 billion. Medicare and the insurers paid more than $360 million based on these claims. According to evidence presented at trial, Cox and his co-conspirators concealed the scheme through sham contracts and by eliminating from doctors' orders what one co-conspirator described as dangerous words that might cause Medicare to audit the scheme's DME suppliers. So crazy. I mean, and this goes on for a minute, right? Like there's statements, the victims are U.S. taxpayers, you and me.
You and me, baby.
The main thing is convicted. So Cox faces a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison for the conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud and wire fraud conviction, 10 years for each healthcare fraud conviction, 5 years for the conspiracy to pay and receive healthcare kickbacks conviction, and 5 years for the conspiracy to defraud the United States and make false statements in connection with healthcare matters conviction. A sentencing hearing will be scheduled at a later date. So that's basically the story. This episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by my mini course, How to Find and Buy Books of Businesses. Guys, in 2024, Glenn and I, in our combined company, purchased and acquired through acquisition 900 clients. And over the years, we've purchased thousands of clients to grow our agency internally. And we've learned a thing or two over the years, right? There's certain things you need to look out for. You need to know how to value a book of business. You need to know how to transfer everything, what the expectations are in terms of the timeline. And you need to know how to put a deal together and structure it to protect yourself while still at the same time doing good business with people. Guys, this mini course is around 10 videos long. It's a quick and easy thing to get through. And it's a great way for you to grow your book of business in 2025. Whether you're finding an agent that is maybe been in the business for decades and they want to retire, and then maybe they don't have any kids to take over their business. Maybe you're looking at a situation with an agent that just hasn't been able to make it in the business and they're just looking to go off and try other things. Buying books of businesses can be a great way to quickly and rapidly grow your business fast. And we've unveiled all of the little tools and tricks that you need to know in this training. It's a one-time purchase for only $197. For that price, we're practically giving it away. Make sure to check it out now. Now back to the show. So here's the thing. Our company gets involved with client claims every day.
Yeah.
We get involved. We try to help untangle the wires. I've said this before, and a lot of people in the space that also do similar services for their clients that we do, which is a huge part of why we have such a great retention rate, 97.5% from last year to this year, across the board, factoring in death, everything. Like, people can't believe that. I can't believe it. It's a crazy number.
It's crazy.
But other people that I've spoken to that do similar services for their clients, when I say things like this, they totally agree. I usually only get kickback from people in the Medicare space, or in the medical field, in the healthcare, that are healthcare workers, or people that are new agents that just don't know anything. And, new agents don't know anything about anything.
You mean pushback? Because you said kickback.
Oh, my bad. Yes, pushback.
I'm only getting kickbacks from those in the medical.
I'm only getting kickbacks from healthcare workers.
Christian, you're getting kickbacks. I'm not getting any kickbacks. Where's my kickback?
This is under the table. This is not included in our merger.
You guys are getting paid? What?
But no, I usually don't get pushback from people that do similar services for their clients as we do. But I've said things before where I've said 9 out of 10 claims that we see on a day-to-day basis are at the fault of the provider. A billing mistake. The insurance might have not been billed at all. An old insurance was billed. There was a wrong billing code used. You went in to, have a nail removed from your eyebrow and they billed it as a toe surgery or whatever, ridiculous things like that.
Weird stuff.
I do believe that the vast majority of things that we see is 2 things. 1, laziness. 2, incompetence. I don't really believe that most of it is malice. you could maybe make the argument that it's malice because they don't try harder to get it right. That's a different conversation. But I don't believe like it's like intentionally like fraudulent most of the time. But there have been cases that I've seen where I'm like, what you're doing here from what we're seeing looks criminal to me.
If it is incompetence, right? Which I agree. I think the vast number of cases it's errors, it's incompetence, it's not these types of situations like what we just read. But from a volume standpoint, if you had to have a dollar amount assigned to malice versus incompetence, there's a chance when you have people like Gary Cox, whatever this dude's name was, which I can't help but feel like when you're 79 and you get hit with something, it's like he got away with it, but he got away with it. You made a Billy by 80, like Mazel Tov. But from a volume standpoint, I'm just telling you the truth. 79, like, come on, guys, we could have caught this 10 years ago. Like, this was probably going on for a long time.
The better version of Jordan Belfort.
Yeah. It's the catch me if you can of
the
Medicare.
Wolf of durable medical equipment providers.
The wolf of I'm going to launch a missile. We're selling so many braces today.
While CMS is in there, we're going to launch a missile in here. Pain creams.
The dollar volume, though, that's what I'm curious about is the actual volume of transactions that are being done in malice with illegal kickback schemes and yada yada. That's got to be a fraction, just a percentage, 1%, 2%, I don't know, 3%.
Yeah,
it's got to be a very small percentage. But is the gross volume in dollars from the bad actors, is it so big that it's almost comparable to some of these just error mistakes? Basic mistakes that we're seeing?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the overall topic to me, when we ask the question, should CMS be more worried about providers than agents? I think when you factor in the fact that when there is Medicare fraud that goes on, it's colorful, it's big, it's grandiose, like $1 billion, you guys.
$1 billion. 1,000 million.
So that, as well as the other things that we talked about, right? The incompetence, the laziness, the arrogance, if you want to throw a third one in there. Medical billing providers are arrogant as fuck. They think they know, they don't know. And so so you put all that together, right?
They think they know, they don't know. They don't know.
So you put all this together. Think about how much claims go unpaid because of the provider, or get paid wrong, or whatever, even if it's not malice. If you could somehow reduce that or correct that, would people have the same view on insurance companies? I've said this before, where like there's a lot of cases, there's countless cases, more than we can count.
Yeah.
If we put them all in a room, it would be a sea of people that have had instances with an insurance company where the insurance company didn't do squat wrong. The provider messed up the billing. The left hand wouldn't talk to the right. The provider wouldn't call the insurance company. There's no agent involved. There's no ESI to call. Who you going to call? Ghostbusters? There's no Ghostbusters. So the claim doesn't get paid. The client pays out of pocket. And for the rest of their lives, they go through life with the perception and the idea and their truth that XYZ insurance company burned me. And it wasn't the insurance company's fault. Countless.
Yep.
Right? Because my provider, my doctor's office, my hospital, whatever it is, they couldn't have done anything wrong. Oh, they're the doctors. They're the good guys. they're the freaking mafia as far as I'm concerned. They'll kill your children. Like, I'm just saying, when you look at this from a 10,000 foot view in the larger picture, it's a huge problem. So much bigger than agents.
Well,
100x.
Here's the part that the worst part, in my opinion, of this entire situation is that the cost of healthcare is going to continue to go up and through the roof when you have all of this happening. The sort of errors, the incompetence, the criminals, the kickback schemes, all of these things are, the money's coming from somewhere, right? So whether it's the cost of that premium going up because the carriers are paying out more money than they were expecting, or whatever it ends up being, right? That dollar has to come from somewhere, and this is the type of stuff that ultimately I think can contribute to cost of healthcare going through the roof, which isn't really good for anybody, in my opinion. I would love to have more affordable healthcare for everybody. Vote Bernie Sanders today. So
Oh my
There can be affordable options without full communism, in my opinion. But
agreed.
Yes.
It's a domino effect, right? Like, what the medical field charges for care is ultimately always going to reflect what the insurance costs are, because that's reflective of their cost to cover that care, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
People love to blame the insurance companies. I'm not saying insurance companies are saints. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying they don't make mistakes.
Right.
But from my view, the vast majority of the time, when we get involved and we actually look at something, it's explainable. It's very explainable why something happened. And again, what I said earlier, right? The insurance company is kind of at the mercy of the provider to tell them what's actually going on.
Yeah.
In any instance. And the providers just do a really shitty job of doing that a lot of times.
Yeah.
Simply put, right? If you really break this down to a really simple matter, either they're just flat out lying about what happened in that visit, like in this case, or they're telling them not, a very like simplified version. I almost think about it like, let's say one of our employees in our company sent a report at the end of the day to you, and it was about something really important going on, and you're like eagerly wanting to know the resolution of it, and they send you a report that's like one short sentence, be like, called so and so, had a conversation, and you're like, well, what happened? Like, what was talking about? Like, that's the carriers when they get a claim.
Yeah.
It's like,
what happened?
Like, that's not enough information. So they say, can we get some more information? The provider's like, no. Or better yet, no response. They're left on red.
Right. Yeah.
And I just don't understand why it's not talked about more. It's not called out more. The healthcare system in our country is not perfect by any means. Everybody will agree with that. But man, these medical providers are probably example A, B, C, and D of that.
The system is really, what's funny too is I don't think I've ever mentioned this to you before, but my mom was actually doing medical billing for a little while for a physical therapist. She was doing.
Have I offended her greatly with my comments?
Yes, and me. You've offended my whole family, my mother and me. So she's going to be moving her plans somewhere else this AEP. I'll tell you that. Screw ESI. But it gave me, at the time, I was a lot younger. I wasn't in the industry yet. But at the time, I remember it gave me kind of this little peek, this insight into what the medical billing looks like. And just like the way things get coded, it's so easy to mess things up when you have a human involved. It's literally like one letter could be the difference, because they're trying to abbreviate everything into it. I feel like a lot of it was like triple letters. it was like, it would be like a triple letter and then maybe some numbers, etc. So that, they're trying to keep things really condensed,
Mm-hmm.
and God bless my mother, but she's a human, she's learning, she was new. So I'm sure there was times that she made mistakes for sure, where she wrote the wrong thing down, right? And it never
Yeah.
gets double checked, right? So it doesn't surprise me at all when you that multiplier effect of all of these providers across the US. And then it's just a couple errors here, a couple errors there, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with, most likely tens of millions of errors with billing codes. And again, that does reflect poorly on all of us. It
Yeah.
does contribute to, this kind of this PR nightmare. And obviously stuff like what we just read too doesn't help with our PR situation either, right?
No.
Making us look like criminals. Gary.
Yeah. The Jordan Belfort that got away with it.
Jordan Belfort. Yeah, Jake, I hope you do a really great thumbnail of Gary as the Wolf of Wall Street of DME. The Wolf of back braces.
Which really pissed me off because it was what does he say? It was 2 million shy of $1 million a week. Gary 79. Quaaludes. I made them in a lab because I took $1 billion. I spent 50 million of that on my Quaalude lab.
Oh my gosh. Crazy.
No, I think that's a very valid point, and like the other thing I've seen too is I do think there's situations where people come in, and I think you see this in all industries, where someone comes in and maybe their job is to do medical billing or medical, coding, and they're just kind of thrown to the fire. They're not trained very well. And it could be that just no one in the organization has that much of a knowledge of it either. And think about this too, right? Like providers deal oftentimes with a lot of different types of insurance, and they're all work differently. They all have different codes, all have different systems to use. And so, they're not just dealing with Medicare plans, original Medicare. They're dealing with group health. They're dealing with ACA. Right. They're dealing with all kinds of things. So it's a classic example of being stretched super thin and just having a very surface level knowledge of a lot of these insurances and how they work. And that's part of the problem too. It's a multifaceted issue, and it's just interesting to me that CMS did for a while there really turn their focus on agents and, carriers and everything like that. But I don't feel like there was some, but I don't feel like there was as much focus put on
providers.
I
totally agree. I feel like carriers and agents are 10 times more under the microscope than providers. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of providers that get put under microscope, and there's all sorts of state boards, etc., that will investigate bad doctors. I read those articles all the time, but it seems like CMS has a disproportionate view on, potentially where a lot of this fraud, waste, and abuse is coming from. The reality is it's happening at every level, right? There it is there's bad agents and brokers and bad agencies and bad call centers out there. There's stuff happening at the carrier level for sure. We've seen those fines come out before, and there's stuff happening with providers as well. So the problem is it's not just like a singular point of problems. This is a kind of a more of a complex issue at all levels. Let me ask you something just from this conversation that I'm curious about is, do you feel like Medicare operates significantly better than any under 65 market or under 65 plans? Like from a billing perspective specifically?
I would say probably not. I think there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
I don't think one of them necessarily works better than the other in terms of billing and claims and all those things. I think you see a lot of overlap, with a lot of these types of plans. I mean, ACA plans as an example, right? Structurally, they're very similar to Medicare Advantage plans. You know, they have provider networks, HMO, PPO type, you know, in and out of network kind of situations. You know, the carrier administers the benefits, that type of thing. So a lot of similarities there. Benefits in general are very different, but
Yeah.
the structure of how all the coverage works isn't all that different, especially, you know, in terms of billing and claims and all of that stuff, in my opinion. So yeah, you know, I think it's one of those things where it's, I don't know, it's very complicated. It's very complicated. And you know, it speaks again to a larger issue associated with just the overall medical system we have. I might have brought this up, but like there's a South Park episode where they have to get something to they have to do something.
American
Yeah.
System.
Yeah, they're like, it's like 10 minutes of them, you know, going to see someone and be like, no, you got to talk to the insurance company. No, you got to talk to
talk to your primary care physician. Yeah.
No, you got to talk to. It's like they talk
now
like
you need to get
25
sign up
different
by
people.
specialist. Yeah. They just keep getting bounced around and around and around and around and around. Yeah, it's so silly, but it's also so real. It's depressing. I guess as a business owner and an entrepreneur, I'd like to believe that the best system would come out on top.
Sure.
So, you know, I think the problem is it's too complex. The system's been, you know, you have too many different options, too many different plans. There's too many different ways that this. So there's got to be a way to simplify it. There's got to be a way. There's a comment here on the stream that I think is interesting. I wanted to read. So doctors are clueless with Medicare. I get calls all the time, and a client will tell me their doctor told them to drop their Advantage plan and just use their original Medicare.
We see it
I
too.
tell my clients that doctor be there to pay the 20% of your cost on $100,000 or $1 million one? You have people making $500,000 a year telling my clients who make $1,500 a month in income to drop their coverage.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That's
criminal.
That's another big
criminal.
issue.
Yes.
Where, like, you know, providers, and this has been going on since the beginning of time, that are not insurance licensed, and again have a surface level knowledge of the coverage, give insurance advice, either them or their office staff. You know, I've seen it a million times. It's the exact same thing, as far as I'm concerned, as us giving medical advice. You know, that would be
100%. 100%. Maybe we should. Maybe we should start giving medical advice.
It'd be blatantly criminal of us to do that. It should be blatantly criminal for them to tell someone to drop their plan when they don't know anything. I've told this story before. Hospital system here, 2014.
Yeah.
They were refusing to accept patients that had a Medicare supplement plan with one carrier, because they were getting it confused with the Advantage plan by that carrier, and they were out of network. And so they didn't know the difference between a sup and an Advantage. So they were refusing people. They were refusing service, not booking appointments. The whole hospital system, not just one office.
Insanity, right?
So
insanity.
We were getting calls off the hook. Back then, it was just me. I didn't have any employees. I remember I spent days on the phone with this hospital system trying to talk to somebody who could understand me. And it's like I was speaking a different language. They're like, huh? So eventually I'm getting transferred around. Literally, I'm doing this for days. I wind up on the phone with the head of all the billing for the whole hospital system. I don't know how, but I did. And I spent 45 minutes on the phone. And then
I wish I had this recording. I wish I had the recording.
Finally, it clicks. And they're like, oh, we really messed up here. We've been messing up here. I'm like, yeah. And so,
yeah.
It got now from what I was told, the carrier was working behind the scenes with them to try to correct it, because they were getting complaints as well. So it probably would have resolved itself, probably, you know, that kind of thing. But that person had me come down and do a basic Medicare 101 for the entire hospital's billing staff. It was like 100, 200 people. And they didn't know anything. They didn't know what A was, they didn't know what B was, they didn't know what supplements were, they didn't know what Advantage plans were, nothing.
What a huge missed revenue opportunity for that hospital. So that's the crazy part of that story, is how much revenue they probably cost themselves by not understanding how Medicare works.
and temporarily what we were doing too, until it was able to kind of get fixed, because it didn't happen overnight. They had to like issue a statement and it had to bleed down through all the ranks, slow moving thing. So what we had to tell our clients was, show your Medicare card only. Don't even tell them you have a sup. Keep the card in your pocket. They will get paid and they won't know how and they won't question it. You have to trick the doctor's office to get paid. Because what happens, for those of you that don't know, is if you bill Medicare and you have a supplement, there's something called crossover, where it gets billed to Medicare. Medicare sees you have a sup on file. They automatically bill it to the sup, and the claim gets paid. The doctor's office doesn't know how. You're going around their incompetence to get them paid. You have to trick them to get their money.
It's just insanity. It's insanity.
That is a real thing that happened.
Yeah.
And
I know.
It affected a ton. And it was the number one carrier at the time I was writing for MedSup. So it popped up a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild. It's wild kind of how the lack of education about just basic Medicare stuff exists with a lot of these medical providers.
Yeah. You think there would be some type of standard practice or some type of educational curriculum, if you're getting paid is pretty important as a medical provider, right? Like, you kind of need that revenue, so I wouldn't be surprised if some people have just been avoiding Medicare beneficiaries. So there's probably some providers out there that don't understand how Medicare billing works, and they're just completely avoiding subsets of Medicare beneficiaries because they think they can't make any money, billing whatever coverage they have. It's just lunacy at this point with how long the system's been around. If it was a brand new thing, maybe I'd feel differently, but it's been around for so long. How do you not know? By the time you were in med school, most likely this already existed. Like, crazy.
Again, right?
Crazy,
like,
crazy.
I think the most egregious thing that they do, or one of them, is giving insurance advice, because it's usually wrong. It's almost always wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, you should be liable for that. Probably are. Like, if someone dropped their plan and then they had a massive claim and
huge loss,
had 25 grand out of pocket, could you not sue the doctor's office for that? That can't cover their...
I'm sure you could. Well, yeah, their malpractice. I don't know if their malpractice would cover that or not.
Yeah, because they're giving insurance advice. They're unlicensed people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, 100%.
It'd be like us giving medical advice again.
I think we should. I think we should start giving medical advice. I think that's the best solution that I've heard yet. They walk in, you take vital. You're taking
into the storm.
Yes. Yes.
They're giving insurance advice. I'll give medical advice. I'll do what they're doing.
Fight fire with fire.
Fight fire with fire.
Fight fire with fire. Next appointment that comes into the office, I think we need to take their vitals. This was the other thing with that med spa thing I was watching the other day, is everyone in the office, like, even if they didn't have any sort of medical background at all, or like any degree at all, everyone was wearing white lab coats, like doctor's coats. I think everyone at ESI, we should get everybody wearing white coats. Maybe you wear scrubs. Maybe you pretend you're an actual doctor. Hey, who says Christian can't wear scrubs in the office? That's you just walk around. You have like the hairnet on and everything, like you're about to go into surgery or something.
Who says I can't perform surgery on one of our clients? It's a value add, okay? It's a value add.
If they're giving out insurance advice, Christian gets to perform surgery.
Same.
Same. Yes, I stand by this. I stand behind this. Yes.
All right, let's move into final thoughts. I know we're basically at top of the hour.
Yes.
My final thoughts, guys, on this is I think Joe Rogan says the best way to combat bad information was with better information. So the best thing you can do is be an advocate for education to your clients. That's how we've overcome a lot of these things, because a lot of these things aren't new. When it comes to, providers giving information and, denied claims and blah, 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 like we've been dealing with all this stuff since the beginning. And the way we've overcome it, the way we've earned our clients' trust is by attacking it from an educational perspective and, proving at times that what we're saying is correct and providing results, like when the plan works the way we say it's going to, when there's something that's billed wrong and it's not paid, we fix it. And then we explain to them what was the problem, right? And then they're like, oh, wow. They're like, they knew what they were doing, that's really the way, to combat this stuff. And unfortunately, do I think it's going to get better anytime soon or go away anytime soon? No. We will be on a podcast 10 years from now, 2035, talking about the same thing. Nothing will be any different.
Welcome to episode 3792 of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. Part 12. Should CMS be worried about providers?
Still talking about it. So, yeah, don't expect anything to change. It's not going to, in my opinion. Just do the best job you can do, educate your clients, and that's all you can do, unfortunately. I don't think CMS is going to change what they're doing anytime soon with this stuff either.
Yeah, this reminds me, my final thoughts on today's episode, you guys, this kind of reminds me of the conversation we had when we're talking about all the bad PR that essentially Medicare agents have been getting in the news. Carriers getting dragged through the mud in the news, stories like what we covered today. If you're just a layman, you're not involved in the industry in any way, and you read that story, you're probably thinking, wow, anybody who's involved in Medicare is corrupt, right? You might literally have that type of idea formulate. So what can you do? You can't drastically change everybody's mindset all at once, right? So educating your clients, your beneficiaries, your prospects, anybody you're talking to, just trying to really set the record straight and give them, like Christian said, better information. I think that is a great saying. How do you combat misinformation, disinformation? It's with better information, getting them the truth, getting them, if it is something like a billing claim issue, helping your beneficiary resolve that and getting them covered, right? Giving them the ability to actually utilize the plan that they have, right? So those are my final thoughts on episode 119. I can't believe we're already coming up on 120. That's crazy.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. If you did watch all the way to the end, depending on how you're consuming this, whether you watch live, whether you watch the replay on various platforms, we certainly appreciate it. Make sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe, 5-star review, whatever the platform you're consuming the content allows you to do. Any support is greatly appreciated. It helps more people find the podcast that need to hear it, just like you. And until next time, here's to your massive success. Thanks, everybody.
Happy selling.